Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for coming back for another video. Last January, I did a recap video of all the best and worst things I did for my chronic fatigue in 2023. So this January, I thought I'd do a recap of the best and worst things that happened in 2024. I wanted to talk about the things that I achieved and the things that worked and my plans going forward for this year. So in terms of things that happened this year, not a lot did. If I'm really honest, everything was kind of thrown off track by having to move out of the house I rented with my friends, house hunting for somewhere new, not being able to find somewhere, having to move out without having anywhere to go, going back to my parents' house, still looking for a place, giving up on the idea of living with my friends, then having to look for a place on my own. Going through that whole process, finding this place and then moving. So that's been my year basically. It's been very overshadowed with all of the moving processes, trying to move, trying to find somewhere, like all of that is completely overshadowed basically the whole year. It's pretty hard to find somewhere, basically. It's hard to find somewhere in budget. There's very limited options at the moment. I'm not sure why. Like everything at the moment, prices are very high, especially around this area. They're very expensive. I looked around the area of Bath, various towns, villages, around this area as well as the city, and there's very limited stuff and it's all very expensive. Getting what you need, getting what you want, being able to live with who you want, and it all kind of not going to plan to the point where we expected to have somewhere to move to, but because of the way things were working, we kept applying to places and they kept either having better offers or not liking the look of us or whatever it was. We kept getting rejected from place after place after place, and it was incredibly stressful. Basically, the stress of the actual house search, as well as the stress of the unknown, of not knowing what we were doing, of not knowing where we would be living, took a big toll on my body, basically. I was in a rough place physically and emotionally just because of the amount of stress we were under, and it really overshadowed a lot of the year. I haven't posted much this year. I haven't done a lot of content making because any good physical moment or good mood was being used in the house hunt and all that kind of stuff. I did go to the Eras tour this year, right in the middle of the house hunt situation. We were very close to having to leave our house, but we had nowhere to go. We hadn't got anywhere lined up. And then I had to go to the Eras tour, and the Eras tour was amazing, but the whole way there, I didn't want to go. I felt so unwell, so stressed. I didn't want to go. I'd obviously already paid for it, so you have to go. You don't literally have to go, but I wasn't about to, forfeit the money. So I really didn't want to go. And I think that kind of shows how I was feeling because of all the house stuff. The show started and I was like, okay, no, I did want to be here. It's really good. And I really got into it. And then the show was amazing. We left. As soon as I got back in the car after the Eras tour, everything flooded back in and I immediately felt stressed again. And I had, however long the show is, a couple of hours reprieve from the stress, but then it all flooded back in my body in such an odd, like the switch flipped and it was just all back. And honestly, it was just really hard. And in the end, it didn't turn out because we didn't end up living together. There wasn't a place we could get. And so that kind of all happened. That's firmly on the worst things that happened this year. Months of house hunting and then nothing to show for it. We had to leave our house, didn't film again, no filming happening, no content making, nothing. I didn't even post a picture of my outfit for the Eras tour because I was just not in a fit state. So I moved back in with my parents and I was there for a couple of months, and I started to feel better when I was there because I basically lay down for quite a while. They looked after me because I was struggling. And I started to feel better, and that's when the videos and the Instagrams like kicked back in a little bit. But I still actually needed to do house hunting because despite all the stress, I hadn't gotten anything, hadn't gotten anywhere. And so then I had to start looking on my own for a flat, and then the whole process started again, basically. So it wasn't as stressful because we didn't have a time limit. I didn't have to leave my parents' house by a certain date, but I still had to do all of the house hunting. And so that was also, you know, part 2 of the house hunting saga. Was now I had to look for a flat on my own, and it was kind of like a whole new scenario because before I'd been looking for a 3-bed house of a certain budget in a certain area, and that had all fallen through. So now I was looking for, not with my friends, everything's fine in terms of friendships and everything. It was just a housing situation problem that didn't work out, which is really annoying. There was no drama or anything. It was just a literal case of housing isn't going to work. Someone is on a tight deadline. They have to pick somewhere else to live. They have to, you know, the group had to separate basically for everyone's different things. So then I was looking for a place on my own, and so then I was looking for a 1-bed. So all of my research, all of my knowledge of what you get for the certain amount of money, irrelevant. I'm looking for a 1-bed, completely different budget. I myself was going to have to pay so much more. It's so much more expensive to live alone than to live with friends, which is not surprising, and that's why students live with friends. But goodness gracious, am I paying a lot more than I would have had we found somewhere, the 3 of us, which is, you know, a shame because that's a lot of money just straight up gone, but nothing you can do about it really. This is basically as cheap as you can find in this city unless you share with strangers, and that was not something I was willing to do. So, you know, I like my flat, we've got it in the end, but the whole process of house hunting and all that kind of stuff firmly in the worst things column. But I don't think I could have really done anything different. I don't think I did anything wrong. I don't think there was anything to learn from it really, other than I don't like moving. There's nothing really that could have been done better. We didn't start too late, we started in plenty of time, and there just wasn't anything available. And so that's kind of, it was just what it was. But that overshadowed most of my year. We started looking in January, just keeping an eye on things, and then a couple of months later we started looking more like seriously. Looked solidly for 2 or 3 months, viewings, applications, all of that kind of stuff, guarantors, and then couldn't find anything. Moved out of our house in June, lived with my parents for a bit, continued looking, realised it wasn't going to work and we couldn't live together, then had a bit of a break when I just kind of tried to like sort myself out and get back to like feeling okay. And then I had to start looking again for myself. So then I started looking for myself, and again with all of the, you know, applications and the viewings and like the guarantor stuff, it like so much faff, finally got somewhere. So I moved in here in early November, bearing in mind that I first started looking for somewhere to live in January. It's all year. It's all I've done this year, and it's just been so much. I've only been here for a couple of months, so I obviously don't know how it's going to be yet, but if I like it, I'm staying. If I like it, I am staying put. I'm only going to redo the process if I have to. Basically, I don't want to do it again. I'm done. The last place I lived in for 4 years, so maybe I'll do the same here again. We'll have to see, but God, do I not want to do it again. Okay, so that's the whole house hunting and nowhere to live saga, which was most of the year. Obviously there were some other things luckily that happened, but that was the main thing that happened this year. Okay, so we've done the big thing in the worst column. Let's do the 2 main things in the best column next. I got a rollator and I got a motability car. Both have YouTube videos, so if you want more information I can link them. But in March I got a rollator from Rolls. I actually got it for free. They sent it to me in exchange for the videos and the Instagrams and everything. But it has made such a big difference to my life. couple of years ago, I got a wheelchair and it was like a revelation. And in March, I got the rollator, which turns into a wheelchair, so it's kind of like both. The rollator, being a wheelchair and rollator combo, gives me a lot of flexibility, especially now that I live alone. I use the rollator part more so I can go places on my own, either walking from my flat or driving somewhere and then walking from the car. Especially now that I live alone, it's a lot better than just the wheelchair, because I wasn't really ever strong enough to self-propel the wheelchair with my arms, and so it kind of only worked with someone pushing me. And if I wanted to get up and walk, the wheelchair would tip if I tried to put any weight on it, so it didn't work as a rollator, it being a normal wheelchair, not a rollator. And so the swap to a rollator wheelchair hybrid has made a big difference for my independence. I think the rollator is slightly less good as a wheelchair than a traditional wheelchair, but because of its added flexibility, it's definitely better for me. There's also a bright pink colour, which is just so perfect. It really goes with a lot of my clothes. That feels like I've had it way longer than a year. Since I got it, it's been my main mobility aid. It's the thing I use most, above my wheelchair and also above my walking sticks. This is like the thing that I use the most often, and I really love it, and it's made such a big difference to me to be able to have the flexibility to go between walking and sitting very easily. To go along with that, another thing that happened this year is I got my motability car. I think in my head, I think the only thing that happened this year is the whole moving fiasco, but it's not actually, because I also got my motability car, which was like a big thing. Again, that's got its own whole video. The fact that I have a motability car is insane. It's crazy. I have my own car, and I think it's hard for me to like conceptualize the fact that I have a car. I love my car. I love what I picked. It's automatic. It's pretty. It fits the rollator in easily. It's like, it's the best thing. If you have the enhanced mobility rate of PIP, I'd really suggest having a think about whether a motability car would be good for you, because oh my god, is it amazing. Especially now that I live alone. I feel like all of these things were good before, but now that I live alone, they're so good. If I want to go out, I have to go out on my own. Obviously, you know, I can meet people or my mum can come over or whatever, but if I just want to go out somewhere, pop to the shops or whatever else, the car and the rollator combo is so good and makes such a big difference. I think I would be struggling a lot more living alone if I didn't have them. It also means I can go home to my parents' house without someone having to come pick me up. I can just go there. It's just my favorite thing. It's just the best thing. I love it so much. I'm getting better at parallel parking in the city, but I could only park on the right hand side. I tried to parallel park on the left hand side and absolute failure. So that again doesn't feel like it happened this year. It's a bit like getting a wheelchair for the first time. I kind of realised that I should have done it way earlier. It was a lot of like work. The process was long, working it all out, understanding the system, doing all the stuff was a lot, but it's made such a difference. And I can't believe when I made this video last year, I didn't have one. I just didn't have one. I didn't have a rollator. I didn't have a motability car. Like, how was I existing? How was I doing things? I don't know. But deciding that a motability car would be useful and doing the whole process was absolutely one of the best things I did this year. Absolutely, no doubt, because while I was at home with my parents, I drove to see my friends at least once a week, and I was at home for a couple of months. If I hadn't had the car, I would have been so much more cut off from my friends, and I think that would have made having to be away from them even like sadder. So I think it came at the perfect time. It was the perfect thing. I made the right choice. I got a Renault Clio and I love it. I just love it so much, and absolutely one of the best things that happened this whole year. Let's go back to the worst things. And we're going to go back to talking about moving and the flat and everything. So after the whole finding a house nightmare, after I'd actually found my flat, this flat, and moved, which wasn't too bad, luckily, because I had a lot of help, the admin buried me. The amount of admin you have to do when you move is so much. And it's worse when you're disabled and on benefits and everything, which is ridiculous. It should be easier because they've already decided I can't work. They have already agreed that I am not capable of whatever. So why make the process so hard? Transferring stuff from one council to the other's hard. Getting a parking permit's hard because you have to prove where you live, but I just moved, so I haven't got proof yet, and you have to ask someone else for proof, and well, they don't even do that. You can't get a letter of proof from them. And then there's council tax you have to sort out, and they want proof of your address, but again, you haven't got that yet. And oh my god, all of these pieces of admin are in like a weird chain. You know, in Brooklyn Nine-Nine, where Amy needs 2 forms signed, but both of them need the other one to have already been done, so you can't actually do either because both need the other one done? That's how it feels. It's all in a chain, but the chain is tangled, which means you don't know which order to do things in. And then when you find something, you're like, right, I'm going to do this one thing, and it's only going to be one job, so it's not going to be that hard. And they say, okay, but you've got to do this first. So you're like, okay, I'll do that one today. And they say, well, no, you've got to do this first. Okay, well, I'll do that one today. And it's like, every time you go to do one of these pieces of admin, it tells you you have to do one before it. And then that one before it's one you didn't even know you had to do. So that adds it to the list. Or it's 5 o'clock on a Friday, so they're not in the office, so you can't do anything for the whole weekend because you need to talk to someone about something before you can do this whole chain of things. Oh my god. And you know, so often I think people are always nervous about the future and how we're being tracked everywhere we go and everything about you's online and everyone knows everything about you. These kind of fears that Big Brother's watching, right? Well, could Big Brother not share my information with these people? Like, not only is Big Brother watching everyone, I'm also putting out an inordinate amount of information about myself here. Why doesn't the council already know everything about me? Why doesn't council tax, why can't they talk to the other people? Why can't they talk to each other? Why have I got to fill out the same form 15 times when I could just fill it out once and they could share it? I understand that that's a data violation, breach, I don't know. But what if I could just tick a box that said yes, like at the doctor's, yes, you can share my information with the people that it's relevant to. Oh, I would love that. Yes, please. I don't care about privacy. I don't want to fill any more forms. Yeah, I've not even finished them yet. It's January. I moved in November. I'm still trying to work out council tax. I think I've done everything I need to do. I think I'm currently waiting back to find out if and how much of a discount I can have for being, you know, on universal credit and disabled and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's my last job in the kind of moving house, new council kind of admin stuff. But it's taken so long and it's taken so much effort that I just think, you know how Pip is seen as like this horror in the community? I'm not saying it's not, it is. It is that. A worth it horror for me, but a horror nonetheless. Why is this the same thing? Why is the moving house admin just as bad? I don't know, but it is. It's horrible. Don't like it. Too much of it. Too stressful, too hard. And I want to do it. I want to be here. I want to do it. That is firmly on the worst things that happened to me this year. I'm sorry, this isn't actually a very informative, useful things to try kind of video. This is literally just me complaining. I'm sorry about that. I'm sorry this isn't very useful, but I'm afraid that this is all that's happened to me this year. I've got limited things to say. Okay, so the last best thing I did in 2024 was I started counselling this year. I've done various therapy stuff before, but it had been a couple of years since I'd done anything, and honestly, mental health is hard. And I think sometimes I feel like with physical health, at least with how my body is, I can kind of like get into a rhythm and kind of know what I'm doing. With practice and being like careful and considered, I can get to grips with it. Mental health doesn't seem like that for me. Mental health seems so much harder to predict and deal with. I would take being physically unwell over being mentally unwell any day of the week. Obviously I have both, so I don't really get that choice, but I think I find it just a lot harder to deal with because your deal with functions aren't working properly. So I started counselling this year when I was living at my parents' house and I had a bit of more brain space. And I think sometimes you forget how good professionals are, but I've been really enjoying it. Sometimes you just need to go somewhere and talk about yourself, which granted is what I do here, but obviously there's a limit and, you know, privacy and stuff. Whereas at counselling, I'll just say whatever I want to say and then we talk about it. And I'm feeling... Now, obviously it could be coincidence and there's no empirical way to know whether the fact that I'm feeling better is due to counselling, but I'm feeling better and I'm also going to counselling. So take from that what you will. The person I found, she's very flexible. I'm not doing a CBT or an organised therapy that's like, these are the things you do. And I've done things like that before and I think they can work in certain ways. She's a private counsellor, she's not with the NHS. And I think especially when you do go with the NHS, they give you 6 sessions and they have things that you're like, you're going to do these things in these sessions. They suggest you do this and you say, okay, well, I've tried that before and it doesn't work for me. And then they kind of like buffer because they have their system, they have their set way of doing things. And if you don't fit in the system, especially because you have a conflicting chronic illness, sometimes I think the things that they suggest for anxiety and depression conflict directly with what works best for my chronic fatigue. For example, they suggest getting out more and doing more exercise, being more active, and I say, okay, well, that's a problem for me. They don't have any flexibility, I think sometimes is a problem. There's no flexibility to go, okay, well, your situation, maybe we need to, you know, think about a different system. And the counselling I'm doing now is much more like free flowing, it's much more talking, much less set and much less rigid, and I think that that's really helping. I'm just really enjoying it basically. So it's one of those things that you can't really recommend, but it's just that for me, I'm seeing some like positive changes and I'm enjoying having someone to talk to, and I'm also enjoying kind of like learning things about myself. I think in this case it's really helping me just do something a little bit different, but it is expensive, so that's how things go, isn't it? Pros and cons. I'm sorry that everything I've put on my good list has been expensive this year. It wasn't intentional. Unfortunately, that's just how things have shaken out, really. But those are the best and worst things that kind of happened to me and that I did for my chronic illness in 2024. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!